Days ago, Meze Audio launched this, a new open-back flagship planar-magnetic headphone called the Meze Audio Elite. While sound quality is what defines flagships in this community, a community where fidelity is part of its very name, and this headphone merits flagship status on sound alone, I'm actually going to start with build quality, fit, and finish. Now, I don't recall having started one of these videos with the topic of build quality before, but I feel compelled to do that now with the Meze Audio Elite. When someone is spending thousands of dollars on a headphone, I think in addition to spectacular sound quality, it's fair to expect outstanding build quality too. Some companies do deliver in that respect, but the extent to which Meze Audio takes it with the new Elite and the Meze Audio Empyrean before it far exceeds any other that I'm aware of. In its literature, Meze Audio says its products are designed to surpass all short-living trends and become heirlooms rather than just headphones. And that would sound excessively sentimental if it wasn't true, but it is true. All of the Meze Audio Elite's parts and the steps necessary to craft them speak more to something like fine watchmaking than headphones. For every Elite, the CNC milling time for the frame alone is over 20 hours. Assembly of the Elite is meticulous, slow because pretty much every component of it is expensive, and any scrap part then would constitute a significant loss. Never have I seen a headphone where the microscopy of macro photography aimed at it isn't as much merciless as it is flattering with the Elite. And that's just the chassis. If the chassis at 20 hours of milling time and additional hours of assembly seems exacting, maybe even excessive, then the Meze Audio Elite's driver unit takes that further still. Each driver unit takes more than 100 hours to produce and test at the facilities of Renaro Isodynamics in Ukraine before delivering the drivers to Meze Audio for final assembly of the headphone. Now, one of my biggest pet peeves with many headphones is the difficulty presented by what should be, in my opinion, the simple act of changing earpads. The Elite uses something Renaro Isodynamics calls an isomagnetic earpad attachment. This uses the demagnetizing field generated by the driver to hold the earpad in place. This makes for simple, easy earpad removal and installation, and I'm bringing the earpads up in the context of the driver discussion because this earpad mounting system also, by design, redirects the magnetic field back into the driver to improve driver efficiency. So yes, the earpads are actually part of the driver's magnetic design. From an engineering standpoint, brilliant. From a user's standpoint, also brilliant because changing the earpads takes only seconds. Speaking of earpads, the Meze Audio Elite comes with two different types, two different pairs. One pair is made of Alcantara, and they're identical to the Alcantara earpads that come with Meze's Empyrean. However, the Elite also comes with a brand new earpad design that's a leather and Alcantara hybrid. Now, which of these earpads you choose will have a substantial impact on the Elite's sound signature, which I'll get to later. Both types of earpads are, in my opinion, supremely comfortable for long-term wear. While on the topic of comfort, I also want to point out a headband design that to the best of my knowledge is unique to Meze, first with the Empyrean and now also with the Elite. It's a patent-pending design they call pressure distribution wings. And what I'm talking about is this recurve design that you see with the leather suspension band and the carbon fiber headband. The way Meze joins the headband assembly with the adjustment slider rods, and the way they angle that whole part of the assembly too, when worn on even wide heads like mine, the weight is distributed beautifully. And perhaps just as importantly, the adjustment rods remain in a more vertical orientation, sizing up and down. Headbands on some other headphones can angle the adjustment rods closer to horizontal on wider heads, making the weight and pressure distribution across the earpad sometimes less than ideal or even uncomfortable because they're pushing out at the top. Now, while Meze's design makes for a wider on-head profile, it also makes for one of the most comfortable full-size headphones available. Let's get back to the Elite's driver unit though. Again, the Meze Elite is a planar magnetic headphone, but it uses a trace design, a coil design, that is entirely unique to Meze Audio and Renaro Isodynamics. The Elite's driver uses a very cool dual coil array on each side, designed for frequency targeting for different areas of the ear, which Meze claims improves acoustical perception, particularly in the upper frequency range. Specifically, the coil on the diaphragm is divided into two distinct configurations, which Meze and Renaro say solves a problem common with conventional planar magnetic arrays, that problem being reflected signals entering the ear canal with different time delays, which they say negatively affects the focus of 3D sound imaging. More specifically, to address this, on the Meze Audio Elite's driver diaphragms, there's a switchback coil on the upper portion designed to be more efficient at reproducing lower frequencies. On the bottom portion of the driver, positioned directly over the ear canal, is a spiral coil. This spiral coil is more efficient at reproducing middle-high frequencies. Positioning this spiral coil over the canal enables that portion of the driver to radiate more directly into the ear canal to minimize time delays. Meze Audio says that doing this again improves 3D imaging and spatial localization. Given how well the Meze Audio Elite images, I'm inclined to think they may be onto something. As you'll see in the measured results later, I also think this design may in fact result in a unique response in the treble range, perhaps because of that more direct radiation of the higher frequencies into the ear canal. The diaphragm is also made of a new diaphragm material that Renaro calls Renaro Paris. According to Renaro and Meze, Paris is an innovative low-mass acoustic diaphragm built on an ultra-thin biaxially oriented semi-crystalline polymer film. Okay, as I understand it, they're stretching the polymer in all directions at elevated temperatures. I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than that, but I'm a very simple man. Anyway, according to Renaro, this results in a complex crystalline microstructure that develops in the film for strength, stiffness, and stability. Again, as I understand it, compared to the Empyrean's diaphragm, for example, it's about 1/3 as thick, is much lower mass, and it's drawn to a higher tension. Among several other advantages, I was told this results in improved impulse response. We'll see how that worked out in the measurements later. But before we get to measurements, let's talk about my sonic impressions of the Elite. In terms of sound quality, the Meze Audio Elite is superb, deserving of the role it assumes as Meze's new flagship. Its sound also deserving of all of the painstaking craftsmanship I've been gushing over. And while the Elite assumes the top spot in Meze's lineup, I was actually happy to find that the Empyrean will remain in the lineup too, because while the Elite and Empyrean sound related, they're definitely different enough to merit the coexistence of both as choices in the Meze family. As I mentioned earlier, the sound signature you get with these headphones has much to do with the earpads you choose to use with them. With the Meze Empyrean, I have a very clear preference for the Alcantara earpads versus its leather earpads. The Empyrean's leather earpads render the Empyrean too thick sounding, too honeyed for my tastes, and I'm someone who tends to like his bass a bit richer than flat. With the Empyrean, the Alcantara earpads are simply more right, more balanced, more airy. The Empyrean, again, with its Alcantara earpads, has a lovely way of being both smooth and shimmery. With the new Meze Audio Elite, it's kind of the opposite for me. The Alcantara earpads, the same Alcantara earpads as the Empyreans, are a bit lighter in the bass with the Elite than I find ideal. The Elite's resolution, however, is clearly a cut above the Empyreans with these same earpads, but it gives up bass impact that I found I missed in comparison. Now, if you're familiar with the Empyrean and you find its bass perhaps a touch too much for you even with its Alcantara earpads, I have a feeling you'll probably opt for the Alcantara earpads over the new hybrid earpads with the Elite. For me, though, the earpad of choice for use with the Elite is clearly the new hybrid earpad. Again, a hybrid of leather and Alcantara. This earpad was carefully created and tuned to work optimally with the Elite and its new lower mass drivers. And these earpads are my clear choice between the two types of earpads that come with the Elite. With the hybrid earpads, the Elite's bass is for my tastes just right. Extended, super impactful, but not at all overblown to me, and with noticeably more resolution and bass detail than the Empyrean at its best. Another thing I love about the Elite, again with the hybrid earpads, is its slightly more forward mid-range. I love the warmth, the weight that the Elite's mid-range presents with guitars, vocals, piano. It's rich in the mids, but without congestion or muddiness. Kudos to Meze Audio and Renaro for opting for some richness in the mids. The Elite proves it can still be a reference headphone, even with a touch of sumptuousness in the mid-range. In terms of treble, I'll compare the Elite to the Empyrean, which again has an unusual, beautiful, smooth yet shimmery thing going on. The Elite's treble, with the hybrid pads especially, is by comparison more lifelike, because it's both smoother to my ears, yet clearly more resolving. Still though, with the Elite's treble, there's still shimmer with its smoothness and even more air and incisiveness. In fact, from the mid-range through the treble, the Elite shines more light on the fine-spun stuff than its sibling. But the Empyrean deserves a place in this family, and I'm glad it'll still remain in the line, as it's still outstanding. The new Meze Audio Elite is familial, yes, but it's also just better, the more accomplished sibling. It's also quite a bit more expensive, $1,000 more expensive at $4,000. The Meze Audio Elite is a beautiful new entry to the price no object flagship class non-electrostatic headphone market. Anyway, let's get to measurements, including some measurement comparisons. The following measurements were made using the Brüel & Kjær 5128, which is the most human-like ear simulator standard and what we've transitioned to as our primary headphone measurement fixture. The 5128 is the very first hearing simulator that simulates average adult human hearing across the full audio range from 20 Hz to 20 kHz. This is the Meze Audio Elite's frequency response with the Alcantara earpads. I'll now overlay the Elite's frequency response with the hybrid leather and Alcantara earpads, which I have a strong preference for between the two. You'll notice in these measurements, perhaps owing to the spiral coil configuration radiating higher frequencies more directly into the canal, there's great upper treble presence, perhaps more than we're used to seeing. While it's just my supposition, I suspect in this frequency range that it may be one of the contributing factors to the wonderful sense of airiness from these headphones. This is the Elite's THD, or Total Harmonic Distortion, with the Alcantara earpads. I'll now overlay its THD with the hybrid earpads. Meze Audio lists the Elite's THD as being under 0.05% across the whole frequency range. You can see that we measured THD from the Elite at levels far lower than that. Very impressive. Now let's compare the frequency response of the new Meze Audio Elite with its sibling the Empyrean, both using the Alcantara earpads. Here's the frequency response of the Elite with its hybrid leather and Alcantara earpads compared to the Empyrean with its leather earpads. As I mentioned earlier, I prefer the Empyrean with its Alcantara earpads and the Elite with its hybrid leather and Alcantara earpads. Here's the frequency response of both of those configurations. And here's the THD of the Meze Audio Elite with its hybrid earpads compared to the Empyrean's THD with its Alcantara earpads. Again, these are the configurations of each of these headphones I prefer the most. Earlier I mentioned that Meze Audio suggested that the Elite would have improved impulse response versus the Empyrean. Since both come with the same Alcantara earpads, here's a look at the measured impulse response of both headphones using the Alcantara earpads. You can see in this impulse response measurement that the Elite does appear to have a clear advantage here. And finally, for the sake of direct comparison to one of the most well-known headphones in our community, here's the Meze Audio Elite's frequency response with its hybrid leather and Alcantara earpads compared to the Sennheiser HD800S. And that's the Meze Audio Elite. The Meze Audio Elite should be available right around the time you're watching this, and again, it's priced at $4,000. Thank you for watching this episode of HeadFi TV. We'll see you next time and on the forums at headfi.org.